How about now? Woo. Yeah, all right. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. For those of you who don't know, I am the mayor of Somersworth, Matt Girding. So again, thank you for coming out. I have the pleasure of introducing our partners from East Coast Evolution Leadership to my left, your right. We've got Melanie and Jake right here. I'll pass it over to them in a second. But just a reminder that tonight's meeting is being filmed for folks who were unable to attend. So if and when you have questions, we're going to have this microphone kind of be the question mic. I'll happily run it around to folks as need be. But again, just because it's being filmed, we need the audio through the microphone so that we can hear your question. But yeah, without further ado, this is kind of a great opportunity to meet our new service providers, ask questions, hopefully learn about what they're going to be doing this year, and maybe by the end we can get some volunteers to help out run the center for the winter. So thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Melanie Haney from East Coast Evolution Leadership, and I really appreciate you guys coming out to meet us, and I appreciate the passion that you all have for the Willand Center that we are just getting to know. I wanted to give a little bit of backstory on our company and how we ended up here, because I know that we're new to all of you, or complete strangers to this area in terms of our company. So East Coast Evolution Leadership is a team building and leadership development business that focuses on stress management and also community development and team building in terms of community. So we run team builders for businesses ranging from like Hannaford's, Doubletree, international companies come in and have us lead retreats for them and team builders. And then we also run community events, and because we love community so much, we want to focus on the entire gamut of community, and that includes the CEOs of these hotels and banks and schools and businesses, but also the most vulnerable in our communities, because they are just as much a part of our community and need to be cared for and looked after just the same as the people who can do for themselves more. And so in that vein, we run the Manchester 39 Beach Street Shelter, the Warming Center, and the Engagement Center there. And we've been doing that for about 2 years now, I want to say. And it's been going quite well. We've also run warming centers in Concord and Nashua. And we were not looking for this opportunity. We were actually reached out to by the Tri-City Council when they said, here's an RFP, would you mind putting a bid in? And so we did not know the backstory of this project. We didn't know much about your community, which is something we're learning very quickly, and we're actually finding ourselves very happy to be here. The more and more that we're here, and the more people we interact with, and the service providers that we meet, and the locals that we're talking to. But we really do understand that you guys are a community together, and we are coming from the outside, and we want to make sure everyone knows that we're not coming in and saying, we know how to do this better than anybody else, and just shut up and listen to us. That is not at all who we are or what we're about. Well, at the end of the day, we consider this like we are coming in here to help your community in any way that we can, and that requires working together as a community, which is why it was important for us to have a meeting with the people that we're going to be working closely with, because this is your community, and we are here for nothing except to serve your community, and in this situation, the most vulnerable. And so that's a little bit about us. Myself personally, I'm Jake's business partner here at East Coast Evolution Leadership. I'm also a mom to 4, and a photographer and a writer, and just kind of like to travel and work with people wherever I can. And so I'm going to hand it over to Jake now, because he can introduce himself much better than I could.
Sure. I'll reiterate what she said. Thank you guys for coming here. I know there's a lot of people who are here probably that have some thoughts about us, and that's why we're doing this. We want to have an open dialogue about who we are and what we're doing. Transparency is actually one of the pillars of our agency, so that's kind of what this is about. Briefly, I'll tell you about me. So I was a Ranger in the Army. I was a police officer. I left police work to run the Manchester Homeless Day Center 15 years ago. And while I was there, my brother, who is a doctor who studies anxiety and mental health issues, and her husband, who is a therapist, and I kind of created sort of a curriculum, primarily based on my wilderness survival experience that I had learned growing up and in the Army. But it was all about teaching people how to prioritize and make sound decisions while stressed. People who are unhoused are going through a lot of stress, and they were probably going through a lot of stress before they became unhoused, and those stressors had some decisions attached to them that might not have been great decisions, or might have just been the wrong decision in the moment, or they just didn't have any other choices. But we developed a curriculum to sort of help people stay calm, basically, and make better choices. And it started to actually have a positive impact. And that was, like I said, almost 14 years ago. And from that, just everything that we've done has grown. And all of the things we do for corporate, for schools, for other agencies, it's all from that base that we learned when we were advocating for the unhoused. So working with this population of humans is really important to us. They taught us how to be better people through their perseverance, and their perseverance is the best word I can come up with right now. And so flash forward, all of these things that we've been doing, we do for other entities. In case in point, for the Tri-City Council this time, they've asked us to run this. And so we have some parameters given to us by them that we have to adhere to, right? They're the agency that is in charge of this, so we have to adhere to those parameters. And I think that's where a lot of the things got lost in translation, is discussing those parameters and figuring out exactly what those parameters were going to be. There was some miscommunications that happened. And I'm gonna say this right off the cuff: we never advocated for taking beds away from homeless individuals, not once. We did not advocate for that. We asked about the difference between a warming center and a shelter, and there was some discussion around that. And I think it just got away from us. But we don't want to take beds away from anybody. We don't want to, especially the vulnerable, right? But that was where it really started to get heated. That's where we really started. I mean, we were getting hate mail, and nobody had even met us. We sat in a provider meeting this morning where we had to kind of do this same introduction with some of the providers we've never met. And fortunately, we had a provider there that has worked with us in Manchester, and she advocated for us. And that, what I'm getting at is, I know it's contentious. I know it's easy to be angry or dislike people you're not really sure about, but I beg you to give us a chance, because we want to hold people accountable and to standards, but we also want to love them. We want to find a way that both extremes can come together so that we can save lives. That's what this is all about, and that's what we do. What else? Here, you go.
In terms of what we're contracted to do, I said at our provider meeting this morning that East Coast Evolution Leadership is not, we're a for-profit business, we're not a nonprofit, we're not a social services company. We don't provide social work or things like that. What we do is we create a safe environment for our staff, for the guests, and for the volunteers, so that the providers can access, so that the guests can access the providers that they need, and the providers can access the guests. So we're really there to create the safest space possible, and also for the community around. We don't want to have this becoming a negative impact, the Willand Center having a negative impact on its neighbors or the community itself. So just to give you an explanation of what we do, is we're not there to actually provide therapy. We are there to get the people that they need in as we're able to, but it's not something that we do. Right, that's all. Yeah. I guess we can take questions.
Well, I just wanted to, oh, I totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, thank you. So actually, yeah, I think we could just do questions.
You'll get your train back.
It will. My train will come back.
It always does.
Yeah. So is there anyone who wants to lead off with a question for our group? Anything they want to learn more about them as they run the Willand Center this year? Yes. Okay. Hold on to it.
The staff that you're, well, my name is Byron Kimball. I run a nonprofit called Blessings in Rochester, and I help a lot of the individuals we're talking about. The type of staff that you're going to have at this facility, is there going to be somebody there that can Narcan people, that can is immediately call the phone for an emergency, because there's been too many overdoses inside the center, and I think a lot of it is because it's all volunteers and it's nonprofits. So
That's not, yeah.
there's no way around it.
So I can speak directly to that. We have never worked with or adjacent to a low barrier shelter where there aren't overdoses. So all of our staff are trained in Narcan. All of our staff are trained in incident management. And we have SOPs. If somebody is medically compromised, we're calling in professionals. But so as much as we don't want to have to Narcan people because we don't want people using, and they shouldn't be using on property, right? We know it's going to happen. And instead of making them feel, I'll give an example. I'll give an example, right? So you understand. There's a huge recovery center in Manchester, and they reached out and said, we have a young man who was staying in one of our step-up programs, and he just can't stop using, and we can't monitor him. Would you guys be willing to take him? Now, no shelter that I know of would say, yeah, absolutely, send us. We said yes, because we either take them and monitor them, or they are going to go use somewhere, right? And I'm going to say this, and you guys can take it however you want, but the cop in me is, why wouldn't we rather have these folks somewhere where we can monitor them than, because literally where we live in Manchester, they were literally getting high in our backyard. And they're people, right? But they're doing something that we don't want our kids to see. We don't want other people to see, right? So why wouldn't we rather have a place? And no, I'm not advocating for them to do that on property, but we know it's going to happen, and we have to be prepared for that. So yes, they're trained in Narcan, they're trained in critical incident response, and we are going to bring in the authorities when we need to for life safety, not for punitive purposes. That's the most transparent answer I could give you. What's that? That's a hard question. It really is.
Other questions? Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Howdy, y'all. Brian Russo. I work with a mutual aid direct action volunteer group that deals with this population regularly. Kind of butting up against the previous question, just going over the rules that are planned for the shelter or warming center. I guess I'll preface this with saying that nobody I've talked to in the couple of years I've been involved in this work thinks it's a good idea to punish people for possession of drugs while they're experiencing homelessness. They kind of go hand in hand. So this alcohol and illegal drugs rule where it says, should you be found with substances in your possession, you will be immediately restricted from the warming center and surrounding property. Goes on to say, if guests are willing to access and attend a detox program, restrictions or suspensions to the warming center will automatically be lifted. Given the answer that you just gave to the previous gentleman, how do you plan on handling when because there will be blizzards this year, when it's a blizzard outside and you find someone in possession of substances that you wish they weren't?
So there's a whole bunch of. Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you. I was like, what am I doing? There's a whole bunch of layers to the answer for that. The first one, and I'm not trying to be contentious or divisive, but if you know what, never mind. I'm not even going to touch on that. So unless it is a safety risk for other guests or our staff, nobody is being kicked out until so the restriction would actually be activated the next time the center is activated, literally the next time. So if there's a 3-day blizzard, they get to stay that whole time. And then we will work with them and say, if it gets activated in 4 days, you're technically not supposed to come back. So who can we talk to? Who can we figure out? Who can you talk to so that when it's activated, you can come back and show us that you did some work on this issue that caused you to get this restriction. So I will go back to, we don't look at restrictions as punitive. We look at them as life safety. They're not punitive. If my child, nope. no, we can disagree on this all you want. If my child who isn't making sound, no, not all addicts, not all homeless individuals. Yeah, this is gonna be fun, I can tell. So listen, here, let's listen, most of my staff are in recovery, right? I take a lot of my guidance from people in recovery about what is going to help individuals understand, right?
Did you get that idea for that rule from that population?
Yes, 100%, yes.
So people struggling with substance abuse.
So, yes.
To punish people.
We don't look at it as a punishment. You're calling it a punishment. It's not.
Are you telling me that if there's a blizzard that's 4 days long, then the restriction of the punishment waits until the blizzard is over, and then they're punished? What if there's another blizzard?
So here, let me explain it to you. The restriction isn't permanent. It's for 24 hours. And when you're working with people who are struggling to make sound decisions because they're in a hard place, right? There has to be some sort of way to interface with them. It's just, are you in recovery, sir?
Am I in recovery?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so you have about as much expertise on this as me?
I interact with this community weekly.
So I interact with this community every single day, personally.
So I would like to jump in and just say that we did build a network of folks that these individuals can lean on and rely on. They met with them this morning. We are hoping, and as part of the contract with them, expecting that they are reaching out and communicating with them about every individual, especially those that may be on a restrictive plan, and are making sure that those folks are receiving services at other service providers and other organizations, so that even if there may be a point at which somebody may be, and hopefully not, because it sounds as if, from what I'm hearing, that they're willing to work with those individuals to prevent restrictions from happening.
100%.
But in the odd circumstance that that does occur, there are other service providers in the region that could service and provide help for these individuals. And a part of their plan to return is to do that work, to be able to access those things that are provided. This could be a rabbit hole, and I so appreciate your passion and your commitment to this issue in particular, but I would love to see if there are other questions that we could answer as well.
I have several, but I'll sort of ask this question.
Yeah, let me just get you the mic, 1 sec.
I'll circle around. So one of the things that I have a question about, so last year there were a few individuals who put a tent outside for whatever reason, and tents are a huge point of contention in all of our cities. I live in Rochester, and the police have been given instructions to go out and slash tents. And for the people who come to Fellowship Kitchen, they don't have a place to be. So if they're here, have you all been given instructions about what to do if people come in, you know, and they pitch tent? So that's one question.
Didn't mean to grab it prematurely. I do want to respond to the police slashing tents. I have spoken directly with my city manager and the chief of police, and there has not been any police slashing tents in the city of Somersworth. It is not a... oh, my apologies. I cannot speak for Rochester. I am happy to reach out to their city manager and their mayor and speak with them and get more information on it. At least with Somersworth, it is protocol that is not what's happening. Our police works hand in hand with the unhoused population to make sure that they have notice if there is ever a clearing of a encampment, that they are given plenty of time to remove materials and get them to a safer place. And essentially, they then work with them, go out and help them, take things down, move things if they need to at the time at which they're supposed to be out. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Other questions? I thought a couple hands over here. We'll start over here in the green.
Hi, thanks for coming tonight. I'm Dougie Kane. I'm a resident of Dover, former resident of Manchester. Two parts to my question here. Can you expound further on how you integrate with other partner agencies at 39 Beach? You had spoken earlier about receiving somebody from another location that was a little bit difficult, and you know, we all lean on each other in the agencies, and the people who volunteer and the people who kind of do their own thing. We all kind of mold around here and help each other out when we need it. Second, for Mr. Mayor, I would remind you that up until the very minute that they raided the racetrack on the side of Willand Pond, they were saying that there was no plans to raid the racetrack. So I would not trust any police officer to do what they say they're going to do when it comes to folks who are experiencing homelessness. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know if you guys want to go first.
Sure. So at 39 Beach Street, we have a care fair every Thursday where as many of the providers from the city we can get come in, sit down with our staff and all of our guests, from City Welfare to Hope for Recovery, Manchester Mental Health, a bunch of financial agencies who come in and try to, do from nuts to bolts, teaching people how to budget to teaching people how to advocate for themselves. New Hampshire Housing comes in, and we have a very open back and forth with these folks. And in fact, I could show you my text. I have a text from a woman named Daisy at Manchester City Welfare from today asking if we could take on a specific individual that they're looking to put somewhere. We take, and this is what the provider said this morning in the provider meeting, we take the people that are being kicked out of everywhere else, that are not allowed in anywhere else. At 39 Beach Street, we are taking the people who are going through the hardest time, and we do our best to get them, one, to buy into their own self-worth, and two, to connect with all of those providers. So that's how we really work with the providers, is just open dialogue. They have access to us at any time and say, this is what we're looking for, this is what we need help with. And we do the same thing with them. We say, hey, we have somebody who does not fit the mold for our shelter, because we can't take children, we can't take families. So we'll call welfare and say, we need some help for these people who just showed up. And it's about being very open and transparent and seeing that the people we're working with are all individuals, and they're all coming from very, very diverse backgrounds, regardless of what they're dealing with in this moment. And we just need to keep that communication open. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Ricker.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, got a question. Following up on the provider meeting this morning that you guys had, what concrete plans came out of that provider meeting? Because past 5 o'clock and before 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing when it comes to outside services around Willand and in this area.
Past 5 o'clock in the evening?
Yes,
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
will be operating.
Yes. So
There's no backup.
Right.
So the question is, were there concrete plans that came out of it, concrete connections of, right.
Yeah.
Whether it be community partners, you have somebody that you can call. We know around here that community partners, God bless them, but they don't have the horses to pull the cart
Right.
at night. So if there's a mental health emergency, you're on your own. Were you able to mitigate any of those issues during the provider meeting?
I wouldn't say any concrete plans were made, but concrete steps were taken to develop a plan. And that's kind of what is so difficult about this particular scenario. This is a warming center being run like a shelter, right? And to get people wraparound services when everything is closed is very difficult. And I can't imagine how hard that was for all the previous people who ran this center, right? So we're trying to learn from everything that they've learned and figure out who is willing to kind of extend some hours, right? We've already talked about potentially one night a week. We are going to try to get all the providers out, from medical to mental health to housing, for 4 hours, one night every week at least, just for some consistency. So that plan was developed, but nothing is set in stone yet because we're still trying to figure out exactly who is going to be invested or who can, like you said. Some people want to be invested, but they might just not have the staff or the ability. And we're just trying to work through all that right now.
Thank you. Ooh, I got a guy in the back, then we'll come over here.
I'm Don. I'm Don. I'm with Community Partners, and thanks for the plug. So I would like to continue this, what you have just been touching on as far as what you know already about resources in this area, what you're hoping to grow as far as resources in the area, because everybody knows there's a lot of unmet need here, and everyone is at capacity. Talking about Community Partners, I'm a therapist with Community Partners on the ACT team, so we're in the community. I'm the only therapist in Stratford County. I'm it. And so my clients run from a 75-year-old gentleman to a 25-year-old Malaysian immigrant. Talk about cultural competency. And so the safety net here in Stratford County has been stretched, and there's a lot of holes in it. And it's like the gentleman said, when you call Community Partners at night, you're not getting anybody, and the clients are encouraged to call 211, which we all know where that goes, and with people. So I guess I would like to hear more from you about how you're gathering the kinds of those resources to help fill those gaps. You talked about a weekly meeting with, but like when we go home, we're exhausted. So, you're going to have to pull me a little bit to get me out. So.
Just to touch on that a little bit, I'm hoping part of what we can do by being someone that's not part of the therapeutic or social work arena, we're specifically there. So we're doing the function of running this so that you guys don't have to also be spread to be running this and getting up and doing the jobs during the day. So your providers are not having to focus your overnight hours. We're taking that off your plate so that you guys can have time to recharge, and then hopefully we won't be reaching out to you as often as one might fear. Obviously things will happen. I just wanted to mention that that's something that we're hoping to be a positive by having a company that's not trying to do all the things, just focusing on the safety and security of the people within the building and making the connections to hopefully give a hand up when the next morning comes. So people are getting dropped off at services, ready to go the next day. We keep them safe and cared for overnight, and then bring them to you the next day. But you can talk more about emergencies.
Yeah, so our main goal is to keep everybody safe in the moment, right? It's like triage. But secondary to that is making all of the connections so that everybody knows who in legally and ethically and, by HIPAA standards, making sure everybody knows who needs what and where certain people need to go. Because one of the things we've learned doing this for 15 years is that in the moment of their experience is not the moment they're going to be like, yeah, I'll go talk to a therapist right now, right? It takes time, it takes guidance and patience. So what we're trying to do is build a team of people who we can do almost like a handoff while still being support during your hours, right? What are these folks who are using the Willand Center at night, what are they doing during the day? And how do we redirect them to, potentially, it's hard, right? And it takes a lot of time for them to say, okay, yeah, maybe this is somewhere I should go. But it just, we're gonna have to continue to work at that. In other words, we don't have a solid answer. I mean, nobody does. This is a global issue that we're dealing with right now. Britain, there's a Netflix series that just came out. Britain just made a statement, this is the worst homeless epidemic we've ever had, ever, in history, right? This is not the Tri-City area or Manchester or New Hampshire. This is global, and that means there's not a lot of people with a lot of answers right now, right? So we're just trying to help find a solution. We aren't the solution, and we know we're not the solution. We just want to be a part of it. Yeah.
Did you
How is that for a non-answer answer?
Good evening. So every organization who comes into the Willand Center wants to build upon what was, already established and try to make it better. What are some of the initiatives that you plan to implement, from talking about previous providers or seeing how it's run in the past? What do you plan to say, hey, this is the initiatives that we want to focus on and implement to make it better?
Well, start. So we're just learning more and more about how it's been run in the past. We've been meeting with past providers, and really not knowing much about it when we were brought in with the RFP. We were sort of given, the RFP had guidelines, if you want to speak to that. And so we answered those, and we said, we can do this. We can make people safe. We can provide, which is why there are different rules. I understand there haven't been as many rules in the past, and these rules are not meant to be something that's going to keep people from wanting to be there. We want to still have it be a space where people feel safe, but that is going to be a change. There's going to be rules just designed to keep everyone safe and part of the community. That being said, one of the rules, for example, that people have mentioned is having bins where people are going to be putting their belongings in. They'll also have a clear bin that they can put their personal items in for the night that they need, and if they do need to access their bin, they'll have opportunities to do so, their larger bin. But that's just a matter of keeping things safe and secure within the space. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. You can take over.
I'm actually just going to touch on, I was going to use the bins as an example.
Okay, what I was going to say is we've never run a center like this without having bins where people have to check them in. But we're not going to say, someone comes in like, oh, I don't want to put myself in a bin, I'm not going to. We're not going to say, okay, well, back out into the cold with you because we don't care if you're not going to give us your stuff. No, we're going to let them stand, not go inside where the access to the rest of the services are. But you can stay in the warmth where we can see you and monitor what's going on. Okay, right? No?
Yeah.
And that's, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So to expound upon that more, and to get to the heart of this, and I wish that gentleman was still here because we really do work with these folks every day, every single day. I am at the shelter every day. My staff work with them 24 hours a day, right? We don't work with them periodically. We don't talk to them here and there. We are with them, right? I have literally slept on the floor at shelters because there were no more bunks left, and I was the overnight. These were shelters where you were supposed to be able to sleep as staff, but we don't run them that way anymore. But they tell us that the thing that has, and when I say they, again, it's painting with a broad brush. They're all individuals, and we know that. But by and large, they say some of the same things. It's when we started to feel a little more relaxed because of the structure that we started to say, maybe we can do this. If they are living in constant chaos of just chasing whatever they're chasing, right, that is chaos. That is not healthy. That's not healthy for any human being, right? It doesn't mean they're children. It doesn't mean they can't make sound decisions. It means that they're stuck in a place that it's hard for them. So what we are going to do is offer, we have the capacity to be a little bit more strict with our rules. And when I say strict, it's not handcuffing us to have to be punitive and kick people out. It's just not. It gives us a little more leeway to have a back and forth with them, right? And that's the way it has to be for everybody's safety, in our opinion and in our experience. So to answer your question, we're going to lean a little bit more on some structure to hopefully get them through that grace period of not liking it, and they will feel a little bit more stable. And then it will be a little easier for us to make the connections moving forward. But outside of that, just keeping everybody safe and feeling like they matter is really our job. And the rest is going to be the big community effort, where we really need to make contacts with people who can get them the services that they need. But we keep saying it like somebody's going to come in and magic them into wanting to be better. They have to make that choice, right? It has to be their choice, and we want to be part of the support that makes them understand that they are worth making that healthy choice for themselves, if that makes sense.
Other questions? This one go up?
Do you want me to go through this
If
one?
you don't mind.
No. Here, I'll make you do it.
My name is Kate Cortez. So one of the questions I have is, with our growing population, there are more and more people living in their vehicles. Are you going to allow people to park at the shelter even when it's not activated, to be in a safe spot?
That's not up to us.
Answer would be that Dover owns the property, and as it's my understanding that we are not looking for people to park and sleep in their cars. If they need access to warm space, they should be utilizing the shelter. Oh, I'm sorry, when it's not activated. I missed that part, my apologies, the microphone mix-up. Again, I think it's my understanding that they will not be allowed to, when it's not activated, to park and sleep there.
And what if you hit your 50 maximum?
Again, the maximum is 50 as like a kind of starting point for where they should start reaching out to other service providers and finding locations for folks. The building itself allows upwards of 80, 84, yeah, I can remember the specific, in the 80s. And again, once we hit that point, we do have the ability to override in emergency situations, but the goal is that, again, our expectation is that they're reaching out, trying to find places, alternative locations with other service providers, reaching out to other folks who do have available spaces to allow folks to go there and coordinate those efforts and transport and all that.
Of course, real quick, and you can correct me if from your position up on high. So I think the goal is to never turn anyone away. Just as the numbers increase, we have to be more active in finding other places to send people. Because the whole point of this is life-saving. The whole point is, please come out of this inclement weather and have a place to be, right? So I would say we're never gonna really turn anybody away. It's just gonna make us have to work a lot harder at connecting to figure out where we can send more people if we have them. Does that make sense?
My name's Mike. I work at a recovery center in Portsmouth, and I also manage a sober house here in Dover. But I'm also a person in recovery, and I know when there was a lot of the talk today centered around like getting people services, getting people whatever they need for services, whatever they want. But the big question for me is like, I know when I wasn't ready, I was not ready, you know, and it took many years for that to be ready. So, like, what are you guys going to do to work with those people that just don't want the services? Are they like, is it going to be forced on them? Like, you know, any of that kind of stuff. I know when it was ready, it clicked, but there's many years till then. So those are the people that I'm concerned about. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's foolish. Right. So to answer your question, we will not be forcing anything on anyone. Right. It's just not. Well, one, you can't. Two, this is New Hampshire, where I was a police officer. It is the live free or die state. you can't touch somebody's civil rights here, right? Even if you think it's the healthiest thing in the world for them. So we're not going to force anything on anybody, but we will have, actually we have some advocates for the recovery world who are going to be on staff, and we will be, oh, sorry. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. We will be, every day we will be encouraging them, but encouraging has to come and meet them where they are, right? If it's clear they just don't want to hear it, we're not gonna push it on them, right? But
I just want to say that's one of the differences between a warming center and a shelter. So services aren't going to be denied to these people if they're not actively trying to get help in a warming center situation where it's life-saving emergency. So we're not going to be forcing that on anybody just because they want to stay alive for the night. Absolutely not. But that's the difference between like a shelter where there's going to be more structure that would probably, but that's not what this is. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. But it also, some shelters, if they're really low barrier, wet shelters, even there's not going to be any expectation to force anything. But those people are still going to be welcome. We're just gonna, so I'm speaking like, let's be real. I want to be real. We deal with people daily in these shelters or warming stations trying to sneak into bathrooms and shoot up, right? We just deal with it daily, right? It's no judgment. It's just, that's a traumatic experience for the staff who has to deal with it, for the other guests who have to deal with it. So we don't want people to feel like it's okay to do that, but we also don't want them to feel like they're bad people for doing it, right? So that's one of the hardest things in this setting to deal with is how do we provide structure while trying not to make them feel like they don't belong. So your question is a sound question. It's hard, but all I can say is we're going to do our best to adhere to our rules for safety, but also show them love. I don't know how else to do it.
I was mostly referring to the people that, like, they do get to that level where they're asked to leave, and you said that they would have, they would be able to go to detox or something and come back. What if they don't want to?
Oh, okay. So it's not as strict as that. They'll never be asked to leave in the midst of the current cold, right? It's more like, hey, if you want to be able to come back here, please show us that you've at least had a conversation with somebody and you're willing to at least talk to somebody about this. It doesn't mean they have to go to detox. It doesn't mean, right? It just gives us some leeway to, if somebody really is a safety issue, and I'm sorry, some people don't want to hear this, but we had somebody in one of our bathrooms shoot up. We had to open the door, right? And they were high and they were swinging a needle at my staff. That's a safety issue. What are we supposed to do about that? We're supposed to say, oh, poor you? Or I don't want my staff to get stabbed, right? Now, they don't all do that, and they didn't mean to do that, but it's still a valid concern, right? So we are trying to bring reality into the situation instead of the extremes where, well, I won't even talk about the extremes. Everybody knows that there's extremes in everything, and we're trying to bring the reality, like sometimes we need to have the ability to say, no, you cannot come back for safety. But we're not gonna do it every single time somebody does something they're not supposed to do. We're gonna do it when it really is a safety issue. But we have to have it on the rules, or else we can't do it at all without causing serious problems. Oh.
Yeah, I think it's working. First of all, I want to thank you for your service and your ability and willingness to help, right? You're not from the community, so thank you. You know, there's a saying in recovery, it's nothing about us without us. I don't see a lot of us here, right? And that's unfortunate. And I hear the words us, they. And again, this isn't directed towards anyone. This is just an overall synopsis to kind of bring things full circle. How many times are we all going to sit here and talk about a solution that doesn't exist, right? The Willand, I've heard it's not going to be open next year, so I hate to like look forward at 1 year, but what are we going to do next year? and we talk about the stages of change, meeting people where they're at, encouraging them. If you're shutting doors on people, right, they're not going to change. They're not going to get help. They're not going to help themselves. They're not going to get well. I'm a person in recovery, so I'm speaking for us. I'm also a mental health professional and a recovery professional and a former member of the mobile crisis response team. I'm a stakeholder. I've worked for Chucky's Fight, the Freeman House. I've worked with, you know, Amy, Milena, Dawn, Mike. We're all here, right? The stakeholders are here. The people that show up, that have opinions, they're part of the solution. But there's a lot of people that complain, and they're not willing to be part of the solution. They just want to identify and complain about the problem. So again, I'm trying to bring this full circle, so we're all not back here next year doing the same thing. What are we going to do as a village to help the people in need? What are we going to do? And say, hypothetically, we are able to help 24 unhoused individuals like we did last year, make that change, and make the commitment to themselves and go to treatment. Are the beds open? What if they need therapy? Dawn's the only therapist on the ACT team, right? So where's the waiting list, and when does it end, and when do they get seen? Do they get seen, or do they die? So again, this isn't directed towards anybody. I'm just asking the community as a whole, when is it that we put our foot down and we say, you know what, enough's enough. These people are daughters, sons, mothers, fathers, cousins. Like, they're loved. People love them. They need some coaching, for sure. Do they need accountability? Absolutely. Tough love is still love, and I am tough-minded when it comes to that, right? I'm not going to enable somebody to continue to devalue themselves, but how can we as a community, and this is a challenge, right? Take it for what it is. I put it all back on everybody here and anybody watching. What is it that we can do as a community to enable and empower these people to navigate the stages of change? Thank you for your service. I really appreciate everyone here, and I appreciate your service. God bless you.
Thank you.
So there's a couple more questions up there, but real quick, I just want to speak to that, right? That's what we're talking about. That's why community is one of our most important pillars, right? We're not always going to agree, right? We're not always going to see eye to eye about the exact perfect path forward. But if we can come together and put what's most important first, and right now, because of the subject, what's most important is the lives of the people who are going through what they're going through. If we can figure out how to come up with a solution as a village, as a community, but I think a lot of people have touched on it, especially Dawn and what you just said. This is a bigger issue than what you're seeing right here. This isn't the mayor's problem, like he didn't cause this. This isn't our problem, we didn't cause it. You guys didn't cause this. This is from the top down, federally. Nobody takes addiction and mental health services seriously enough. We don't have nearly enough support for those things. Those are the things that are driving most of these issues, right? No, I can't say most of these issues, a lot of these issues. And then we have a housing crisis. I can barely afford where I live. I didn't, I don't want to talk about who I voted for, right? All right, so, yeah, let's not get political. It's not even totally about politics. It's more about our society as a whole and how little we think about mental health and how much people are suffering because they don't have the same that other people have. They're suffering. People are suffering. And we're not getting the support from where we need the support, in my opinion. So the fact that we're all here is wonderful. We just need to figure out how to break through.
I just want to, as the politician here, I'll get political.
Fair.
All of the coordination and all of the services that you spoke about, all of the things that are needed to make sure that these folks have access to healthy and lifestyle that allows them to kind of grow beyond where they are at this point, which may be, for probably many of them, some of the lowest points in their lives, right? All of those things are, not all, but many of them are bigger than just the city of Somersworth. Many of them, I would like to say, could have been helped, maybe not solved, but helped had the county actually been able to pass a resolution to allow for the new Riverside Rest Home to be built, and then the old one to be utilized for essentially these exact things. Unfortunately, after yesterday's election, the county delegation and our county commissioners are changing. We have 2, I believe, new county commissioners who may be less friendly to these issues. And we have a delegation that I don't have final numbers on, but also may potentially be less friendly to these issues. We have a new governor who is as friendly as our last governor on these issues, which is not very friendly at all. And it's heartbreaking to see that something that I think we all care about may be sidelined for at least another 2 years. Now, I'm not going to say that it's there's nothing that can be done. We actually in this room have a rep-elect who I know will fight for us very, very hard in the State House, so congratulations on these issues. We have a state senator who's here listening to these community conversations, and I know will fight for us too, so thank you. But I wish in some ways that this meeting had happened 2 days ago so that we could all use this as motivation to tell our friends and families to vote for folks who would stick up for the people that we know are the most vulnerable. But sadly, we need to come up with solutions that I don't have, that I don't think any individual has. And to your point, we need all of us, because we're the ones who care, need to work together to figure out what that might be for next year and for the year after. And then hopefully in that year we can see some change at the state level and maybe the federal level that can benefit the people we know that need it. All right, I think I said you were next, and then we may only have one more after that. I'm sorry.
How's it going? My name's Mike. It's a little unusual what I do. I just drove up from Boston to be here because I believe in this. And the first time I came up here was 3 years ago when the Willand Pond encampment was out there. Over 100 people were out in the woods. I don't know how many people actually walked out there. I know people were afraid and whatever. I've been doing this for 31 years. I work in Boston every day. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Methadone Mile, Mass and Cass. I'm there every day. I'm not in recovery. I lost my best friend out there, and I probably could have saved his life if I was there an hour earlier, but I got to see him dead in the street. It's that serious. I get my Irish up when I'm talking about this because there's kids there, so I'll be nice. But I want to help. I don't want to complain. I don't want to be one of these Facebook lunatics that I'm on all your pages, and I read every one of them, and I can't even eat lunch some days when I read them. It's nobody cares until it's their kid, their brother, sister, whatever. Until it hits them, they don't care. And when it hits them, something should have been done. I was struck when I come up here, and I came up here, and people think I'm nuts, and I am a little nuts. But I'm a medic, and I'm trained in this. I know what I'm doing, and I'm certified in everything. I walked out in the woods. I spent 12 hours in the woods that day, 3 years ago. And I met your chief. He was captain at the time, and he's one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, and he's the reason I came here tonight. Introduced himself with his first name and shook my hand. In Boston, what we were dealing with, you can Google this, Operation Clean Sweep in 2019. Marty Walsh created Mass and Cass and was there for 10 years. It was like the show The Wire, Amsterdam, you just shove it in a corner, just let it happen and fester, but don't fix it. Operation Clean Sweep happened. I saw, there's kids here, I can't describe what I saw. I can't, I will separately, but it's not gonna help anybody right now. Some people are never gonna stop using drugs, and you have to be okay with that. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. It's not up to anybody here. They still deserve to live. They have civil rights. They reside here. They're still residents, constituents. I speak with City Hall, the State House. I could talk for 3 hours, but I'm not going to. I'll offer right now, anybody in this room that needs Narcan, training, stop the bleed, AED, CPR, I'll train any of you for free. I'll give you the supplies for free. I want to volunteer at your center. I want to maybe make an appointment, have lunch with you two, maybe next week or something. It would probably take an hour to go through all this. But everybody says something needs to be done. I will do it. I will drive up from Boston. I will volunteer a couple nights a week. I'll spend the whole night. Because like I do in Boston at the shelter, I've slept there so many times I can't even count. This can be fixed. And by bringing people into the fold and knowing heroin doesn't exist anymore. People need to know stuff like this. Xylazine, metomidine, these new drugs, the new problems. I just want to elevate everybody's education, bring everybody on board, and act as an intermediary maybe between the community of people in recovery, the citizens, the politicians. Everybody's got to come together. Because the worst thing people say is, it's not my kid, but I have news for you. It's not your kid yet. So, and I'll follow up with you after. I'll give you my number.
Yeah, no, that's great. We would love to have you volunteer and meet with us.
I didn't swear once.
Do you want to talk about how to volunteer or what to do to be able to do that?
Yes, speaking about volunteering, we wanted to provide a list, a piece of paper, we forgot a piece of paper to sign up on.
We are in a school, we might be able to find one.
Yeah, that was, and then I got distracted by needing to find the bathroom, whoops. So we will do a sign up if you want to give me your email address or telephone number, and we'll be sending out emails to have volunteers. We're going to need a lot of volunteers and support. So that's the way to do that. We're also going to have an Amazon wish list on our Facebook page, which is East Coast Evolution Leadership, and that's a way that people can donate supplies that we'll need for the center, like toilet paper or disposable products, so trash bags, all sorts of things that you need for. But yeah, I just want to say to what's been said in the last couple of minutes here, this is really why we came out here tonight, to have people look at each other, sit with your neighbors, sit with your village of people, and not be behind a keyboard pointing fingers at like, oh, there's this huge problem, well, this is this person's fault, or I heard this person said this, and then telling someone else, did you hear what they're doing and these people and this and that, and that just causes anxiety and fear and stress, and it doesn't do anything to help the issue that everyone is actually wanting to help. And so I appreciate you all so much being here and for just taking the time on your evening to talk to us and to become an active participant in something that you all truly care about. And that's the only way things are going to get better. And hopefully, if this happens again, if we have another meeting, we'll have double this amount of people and really just start talking to each other more. So.
Sorry, we might have got too close. Yeah, thank you.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, definitely.
And just so to kind of close my part of this out is this whole thing was developed to be sort of an extension of a growth mindset of how do we learn and grow together. So, you know, as long as we are adhering to the standards that we have to under the Tri-City Council, if a volunteer or somebody or anybody comes out and says, hey, what if we did this? And it makes sense and it works. We are the agency that will say, well, holy crap, that's a great idea. Let's see if we can't build that into the SOPs so that it can happen, right? And that's what I think we need in this working with humans, because humans are very fluid no matter where you are, right? None of them are the same. None of them are going to respond the same way to things. And it doesn't matter if they're unhoused or in addiction or a billionaire. Humans are very fluid. So we need to be fluid as well. So if you guys come out and say, this is a little bit weird to me, can you explain it? What if we tried this? And it makes sense and it can be done. We will do it, right? That's just the way that has to work. There are some things that we cannot deviate from, and that's always going to be safety. And that's what we've done for 15 years is our best to keep people safe and feel loved. So that's where we are going to draw our hard line, but everything else is up for growth.
What about rides to the shelter? This is a big problem. We have people in Rochester that have to go to Dover bus station to get on their shuttle to go to the warming center.
No,
Somersworth, the same thing. Is you're gonna have an agreeable coast to get them there?
yes.
Because that's a hell of a hike.
Right.
108 to the shelter itself.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple of different options for people to get there, and we're going to be providing, we will have vehicles that will be doing pickups at certain places in each of the three.
Can you make sure that places know about this?
Oh, yes, yes.
Because Elaine and myself, she's the president of the food pantry at the Rochester Kitchen. And I built a community down there to get more people out, get more people involved. We do have a lot of homeless people that do come there. We have a lot of regulars that go there. I go down there every night and sit and eat with them. Plus, I volunteer on Monday nights with another group that does recovery too. But nobody knows this because nobody communicates together. This is what we need.
That's what we're trying to change.
But we need to have more consecutive meetings. Don't wait 6 months so you forget about it. Talk about new issues. Let's nip it in the bud now while we have the chance to do it. Everybody here probably has a nonprofit. They probably all do the same thing. Why? Why can't we just all get together and come together? This is our county. The heck with the people above. Let them make their decisions, but we need to take care of our own people.
I agree.
But it's so hard to get it to be done.
Yeah. Well, there's so many more questions we could take, but we are sadly out of time, and I need to let the folks who are running this up there go home. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you everybody who came tonight to speak. Really.
Did you mention that Sunday that we're going to do a volunteer training? No, you don't want to mention that. Oh, okay.
I will get that piece of paper though.
Yeah, piece of paper, and we can have people
All
sign
right,
up.
thank you everybody.
For your service.